welcome to Unit 2, a survey of ancient Persia, India, and China. We will be discussing all of these cultures and the specific religions and beliefs within them during Unit 2. This course only has 6 lessons within Unit 2, and we're going to be doing a recording on each. Let's start with the Persian Empire. So lesson 1 will focus on the Persian Empire, and as you can see, the area that it encompassed stretched all the way from Africa all the way over here, and we will learn that it even touched parts of India and modern-day Afghanistan, Pakistan. One thing that you will notice is that it never could get Greece. It never could fully get Greece. Already in this picture, we'll notice that. Here's some of the key vocabulary that we'll be working on. Empire, when one country controls another, or it controls different countries. An emperor, the leader of an empire. Imperial means anything that relates to the empire. Tolerance, you may have heard it in other contexts, but this is when people are not being punished for being different. They're not punished for being different, specifically within the Persian Empire. Bureaucracy, again, that's another term you may hear in other fields or subjects like government, but it is, in this particular case for Persia, a system of government in which the work of the leader is done by government workers. And we will see that Persia started an imperial bureaucracy. So, starting with the Persian Empire, Persia developed one of the largest empires in the world. It was built on other civilizations in Mesopotamia. Remember, civilizations were already existing there between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. What Persia became known for were its powerful kings, the fact that it was very tolerant, its imperial bureaucracy, the royal road, which was a huge accomplishment, and the Zoroastrianism religion. So, how did Persia get so strong? Well, right before that, we know that the main power in that region was held by the Assyrians. Persia began to conquer other local kingdoms, and so it kind of brought them in, and because it didn't force them to believe in their own particular religion, Zoroastrianism, other religions and other cultures were more willing to become a part of the Persian Empire. There were tolerant rulers who did not make slaves out of the people, and it treated them well. In fact, slavery is kind of outlawed within the Zoroastrian faith, so it kind of didn't go hand in hand together. So out of all empires to be taken over by, the Persians probably weren't that bad. But of course we know from the Persian Wars that the Greeks think differently. The Greeks and the Persians did not get along. So the Persians became rich through trade. They traded precious metals like copper, lead, gold, and silver. And we will learn about how they became so popular in trading once they made the royal road. So one of the first kings that we need to know about is Cyrus the Great and all of his conquests. Starting in 550 BC, Cyrus expanded the empire so it stretched over 2,000 miles. And we just use the general geographic regions, India to Anatolia. India to Anatolia, and you just want to try to capture that in your mind. Anatolia to India, India to Anatolia. The distance is still the same, but you want to be able to remember those terms because those are the ones that you are going to see. Cyrus the Great, he treated his conquered people with tolerance. He didn't make them slaves, as I mentioned earlier. And instead of destroying their cities, he welcomed them into his empire. He allowed them to keep their governments and their religions, and this led to a more peaceful transition and ultimately a more peaceful empire. So look at Cyrus's. Here's Cyrus's right here. Hot pink. You can see stretched all the way over here. All the way. So it's literally, it's in Africa, it's starting to touch a piece of Europe, This is what's known as the Middle East, modern day Middle East. It goes all the way and touches Asia, so over here to Central Asia. So, I mean, it's kind of in a way touching three continents, this Persian Empire. And we know that Mesopotamia started in this region, so this became a huge area for trade, commerce, business. And this ultimately was one of the contributing factors that influenced the growth and rise and strength of the Persian Empire. So, Cyrus, as I mentioned, he was a very tolerant ruler. He conquered a large area. He was known as a military genius. He not only allowed other people to keep their own religions, but he also had a sense of a freedom of religion. And one of the biggest things he's known for within our Judeo-Christian culture over in the West is that when he conquered Babylon, he freed the Jewish people. So Cyrus was already written well in the Jewish eyes for freeing them from the Babylonians. The next king I want to speak about is Darius I. Darius became king in 522. He expands the Persian Empire and created an imperial bureaucracy. Now, just for a second, I want to go back up and I want to show you the map. And there's Cyrus in the hot pink. And you'll see that Darius expanded it just over a little bit and just over here. And so Darius kind of just stretched it just a little bit more. Alright, allow me to go back. And Darius created the Royal Road. And this, of course, made trade easier, but he also implemented the use of coins and the use of measurement. Government. Now, the Persians had a specific system where they developed an imperial bureaucracy, which we are defining for the purposes of this course as a system of government in which the work of the leader is done by the government workers. Persia's imperial bureaucracy, this is where all the people worked for the emperor. But Persia was so large that Darius himself could not run the entire, expansive empire, so he divided it up into provinces. Each province was governed by a satrap. These are, I guess, what you would consider in the U.S. like kind of a governor. The President of the United States cannot, run every single state within the United States, so there's a governor that's appointed for each state, and that trickles down all the way to the local level as well, as we know. So, and we see countries all across the world that still use this same type of model for delegating power. The satraps were responsible for collecting taxes and defending Darius's territory. Darius also expanded the empire to touch modern-day Afghanistan, Pakistan, and parts of India. Now, of course, they were not known as those countries at that point, but this is how we measure in our relative geography. However, one of the setbacks to Darius's legacy is the fact that he never could conquer Greece. There were ongoing battles between the Persians and the Greeks for many years, and this is what's known as the Persian Wars. And if I'm correct, the popular movie 300 even referenced the battles and the conflict between the Greeks and the Persians. So, let's talk more specifically about Darius's Royal Road. It stretched 1,600 miles. It was the main commute of the Persians. Think of it as like a major interstate system, the first and most well thought out interstate system for trade. And this was developed by Darius and the Persian Empire. People could go from one end of the kingdom to another in just a week. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot nowadays, but that was an incredible feat to accomplish. So, it increased communication as people are moving faster, and it also, of course, made trade easier. Here's a little graphic that I have. I'll read this for you. about the Royal Road. The road was 1,600, I said 1,600, it's actually 1,677 miles in length. There were 111 post or relay stations spaced about 15 miles apart along the road. Other roads branched off the main roads to distant parts of the empire. In class, that's exactly what I was thinking of when I said a major interstate system, where interstates would then break out into smaller highways, then possibly parkways, and then of course the local streets that you guys are probably more familiar with. So, more on the Royal Road. About the ride, the relay stations were equipped with fresh horses for the king's messengers. Royal messengers could cover the length of the Royal Road in 7 days. Normal travel along with the road was longer. A caravan, for example, might take 3 months. So it's not the fact that everybody could take 7 days, but these are specifically for messengers who had a fresh supply of horses along each and every post. But the normal person who may be traveling, as it says here, could take even 3 months or longer to cover the entire distance. And here's another map of the Royal Road, and you can see it starts to break up. There's a little split right there, but this reference in green shows all the cities it's going through. Tarsus, oh, there's Tigris, there's the Euphrates, there's Babylon, which was conquered, and that's where the Jews were set free by Cyrus, and then of course it continues. So it stops right here and it continues just a little bit longer. So as I mentioned before, Darius improved trade by adopting the use of coins. Pay with coins instead of bartering. Before this, people were going back and forth, kind of like at a market. When I used to live overseas, you would do something like this when you didn't have, or you wanted to argue for the price. And there are parts of the world that still operate in a bartering system today where cash may not be available, so they may be trading beans for rice, and they may have to use something other than currency for currency. Now, instead of doing that, Darius created coins as a value system. He also wanted to have measurement. So let's figure out how much we're actually trading with. Zoroaster. And I apologize if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, but Zoroaster was a prophet who lived around 600 BC. He is the founder of Zoroastrianism, the monotheistic religion of Persia. So more about this. We know that it's the religion of the Persia, but this is what's incredible, is that it also is monotheistic. Now before this, we've only studied one other monotheistic religion, and that of course was Judaism, from the Hebrews. Now, Zoroastrianism preached that earth is a battleground between good and evil. There was a belief in the afterlife, and everybody will be judged based on how well they fought for good. Now you can see these last 3 points here, they sound like some of those elements have carried over to other monotheistic religions, and that is the case. So those are what we call the legacies of Zoroastrianism. It's still practiced in parts of Iran and India, and traces of it can be found in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. There is a concept of Satan in it, and there are angels. And this is a common Zoroastrianism symbol within Zoroastrianism. So that's all for the Persia lesson 1. If you guys have any questions or comments, let's stop and talk about those. And I hope you kind of got a survey, an overview, and I hope you learned something.